I'm sure you've watched enough YouTube lately. It seems like I made a joke. It seems like it's like steroid awareness month almost. Like everybody is talking about steroids in a manner where it's
Yeah.
the side effects, all the risk factors. And so my question to you is, how do you see the awareness part, or all of the steroid talk, the transparency of it all? Do you see it as something that is doing more good, deterring people from doing steroids, or is it doing more harm and making it more the knowledge more accessible to be able to do steroids?
Yeah, I think it totally depends on the messaging, and this is where getting it right can be a little bit tricky. And this is especially true, I think, if the person is enhanced currently, and if so they're kind of giving off the message of, yeah, don't do this, it's really bad for you, but then they're also enhanced, so it's like,
Yeah.
for you, you've gone through it and you're sort of on the other side, and so you have more perspective because you trained naturally for a long time, then you partook, and then now you're on the other side. But for what when I see someone who's currently blasting and then they're trying to like raise awareness, I think in a lot of cases they're sort of just trying to raise clicks, and so
Yeah.
and then you had. You're right. This has been a month of. I know Jeff Nippert had a big video out titled "Steroids Are Awesome," which is a hell of a title, but it was also a really good video. It was very well
Yeah.
done, and that's just YouTube. I mean, I used to be so against clickbait, like
Yeah.
so against clickbait, 4 or 5 years ago when I had 12 subscribers, and I think
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
kind of need to, at least to a
You
certain
have to.
extent. And
Yeah.
he backed it up with a very good video, which I think didn't convince anyone to take them. But I have seen some videos where they are glorified, where the downsides are minimized. Then you see all these sort of motivational videos where every single lifter you see is enhanced, and then you have the music going, and then that's where, or some people are saying, oh, training naturally is a waste of time, why would you stay natural, or it's even used as an insult. Bro, you're looking really natty. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
see that as an insult because I know what true naturals are capable of, and it's actually a lot more than most people think. But if
Yeah.
some people go to Reddit, Natty Your Juice, or some other forums where the standards are just incredibly low, agonizingly low,
Yeah.
they might think that, yeah, like, why would anyone ever train naturally? You're done after 2 or 3 years or 4 years of lifting naturally. You're not going to make any more gains. And so, of course, you should just hop on, that's not true at all. I'm still making
Yeah.
very good progress 9, 10 years in, and I think that's true of pretty much anyone. And
Yeah.
so I know Will Tennyson also did a video going around asking people if they would ever use steroids. Most people said no, and it seemed like the people on the fence were the least developed people
Yeah.
muscularly. People who are
Yeah.
a year or two into training and just, I see the temptation. Maybe you're not doing well in life and you just want to accelerate the progress. And this is where it's hard to talk people out of it
Yeah.
because they're hyper focused on the gym, on gaining muscle, and they don't maybe know about the side effects, or they just don't really think about them. I mean, I've heard people say stuff like, "Yeah, I got a little bit of gyno this cycle, but I'll just snip it out later." They're just talking about surgery like it's like it's
Yeah.
nothing, like no big deal. And so I think you have to look at people's incentives as well. People will talk about, oh, this is an educational video, and then there's a link in the bio to some underground pharma place that sells this kind of stuff, and it's not about education for them. It's about making money, right?
Yeah.
Making money off of almost exclusively young men who don't know any better, and it's not that hard to convince them to go on, right?
Yeah.
Because this is something that they're hyper focused on. They're not thinking long term, they're just thinking short term. They just want to get big at all costs. It's not about their health, it's just about how they look, as you said. And so, yeah, I really think about what if I had started lifting 10 years earlier? Because in that mindset, you don't, like, your brain literally can't think about stuff that far in the future. It just
Yeah.
can't. I don't, maybe it's an evolutionary thing where society or just humanity needed some young dumb men to go through that phase because sometimes they got stuff right. Most of the time they got stuff wrong, but evolution took care of them and they got out of the gene pool. But some of them maybe did some awesome stuff and discovered, maybe they were travelers or adventurers or pathfinders. They found some new resources because they just didn't think long term and they didn't have that fear of messing stuff up. And so, 18 to 25 was your 7 years of doing crazy stuff. And that's sort of how men are typically, right? After 25, a few years out of college, all right, now you're thinking more long term. You're thinking, what is my life going to be like in 5 years, in 10 years? What do I want in the future? And I think for most people, that doesn't really involve anabolics. So yeah, I think you have to look at the incentives of the content creator. You have to look at their history, where they've been, their motivations, and then how they phrase it. I mean, you mentioned Dr. Mike before. I think he had a video, I'm not sure if it's still up, of like, here's a beginner cycle. Like, here's what you should do if you're not sure if you want to use steroids. Like, just take some Anavar or something. Like, take a little bit of this and like see how you respond. And to me, I mean, that's just so irresponsible because it is a slippery slope. And this was a while back. This was a year or two ago. But it's just such a slippery slope. And what do you just do, one cycle and then you're done? Well, now you've ruined your natural training because nothing you ever do is going to compare to that cycle because it is different. And then why even go to the gym? Because you're just so focused on that progression, on that progress, and you never learn to love training because you only train for a year or two. So you got your newbie gains, which were fast, and then you hit a brick wall. And instead of trying to get around that brick wall or over the brick wall, you just decided to run through it with a cycle. Yeah. And the next time you hit a brick wall, because even with one cycle, like you're going to hit a plateau again, you just take more and then more, and then you add in other stuff, add in polypharmacy to deal with the side effects, and then now, you're 5 or 10 years into this. And I think if someone shows a lot of promise to be able to compete at the highest level, they'll probably be able to show that promise naturally.
100%.
Yeah, because you can see in the shape. Like, I'm sure your like peak natural photos to wherever you got, you knew that you could get to that next level. Like, you just knew based on how you looked. Whereas I see some guys where they're like, yeah, I want to be an IFBB pro, and then you look at their structure and you're like, yeah, no, that's not. What are you talking about? Like, that's another kind of body dysmorphia, where they have this like reverse body dysmorphia where they're not too hard on themselves. They're not being hard enough on themselves, where they should look at themselves and be like, I should just live for my health and enjoyment, not trying to be Mr. Olympia or Arnold or anything. And so, it is tough, and I'm definitely more against them than most, but I also try to have empathy and realize where people are and where their mindset is, and I also realize that for some people, it is the right decision.
Yeah. I'm going to show, this is, can you see this? This is me, 21.
Oh, damn. Yeah.
before I hated people did steroids because I remember there was a team back home when I played football in high school they were sauce to the gills. Like, I don't give a shit. They were sauce. Like, one year they were pretty good. They came back the next year and everybody was just that D-ball look of just watery, and everyone was massive. And I was like, I hate, I was like, screw steroids. So for me, I was all about like creatine and, so that's where I started. Not where I started. This is me at 21. And then like when I was in, 11 years old, I've looked kind of like this for my entire life.
Yeah.
So from like, you look at from then 21 until 28, I was on nothing, and obviously from 21 earlier on nothing either. So I think the thing is like the biggest point you made is that people don't train long enough to eat, like, especially when they reach a plateau. Like, and I just did a video on this, but like when they reach a plateau, it's like, oh man, I'm screwed. I can't make any more gains. It's like, I don't think anybody has ever reached their natural peak at all. Like, no. I don't think anyone even come close. Not even myself, because like I think that now, just because of how old I am now, I'm 41 and not using anything, and I'm still making progress still. Like, and like I can still make progress, and obviously I can't get back to being, I was 270 at one point, right? So it's like, do I want to be there? No, I don't. But I'm still making progress in where I'm at, and I coach a lot of people who are in their 40s, 50s, who are natural and making progress, and it's like I don't think anyone has ever reached their genetic limit at all, or their peak, to even really have the the real reasoning to be like, I need to do steroids now because you hit a plateau and you don't have the resources to get past plateau, and then you quit and you decided, let's take the fast route. So like definitely, I think that we're the ones that are being, transparent about steroid use are doing a good job at that, but there's not enough of us. So I would say that there's way more information out there to make it more attractive than it is not to. And then not to get on Chris Bumstead, but it's like you're gonna tell some kid to not like I want to be Chris Bumstead, you know what I mean? Like, and it's not his fault, but like you know what I mean? Like it's the industry makes it so attractive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah.
And actually, if you look at Chris, he had a picture of him, and he said, "Oh, this is when I was natural." And most of the comments were like, "You're lying. No, no." And these are people who probably idolize him. But when he showed his natural photo, and he was really jacked. But of course he's going to be really jacked. He's Chris Bumstead. Of course his natural peak is going to be, and I think he started fairly early, but of course his natural before steroids picture is going to look ridiculous. It's the same true of any really high, top five Mr. Olympia guy.
Same for yourself, because like I remember I was doing a pod with Doc Mike, and he made a great point. And when people were like, "Yo, like I don't want to, I'm gonna train natural instead," and it's like, do you understand that the natural people you're looking at are just the guys who are on gear, not on gear? Like if you yourself are natural, and someone's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna train like Jeff because he's natural," it's like, but Jeff's a outlier. Like you're genetically gifted. If you do steroids, you're going to look redonkulous, right? So it's like when it comes to that whole natty or not thing, and like you can't accept the people who are on steroids who look as crazy as they do only look that crazy because their genetic abilities allow them to when they're enhanced. So to kind of like do this to segregate. I want to train like a natural instead. It's like, but you're not going to look like that guy because that guy's genetic. You're a genetic freak. You're 6 foot. You look like you're compact. You're muscle. You have a good physique. You could probably, if you wanted to, compete in classic physique or something. You're a taller body. You got big quads. Yada yada yada. You're not just to say I'm going to train like Jeff in a second. I'm going to look like Jeff. It's like, but you won't. Like at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's one of those things where. Yeah, I have to manage expectations because I've gotten a few clients where they're like, "I want to look like you," and I gotta shut that shit down real quick because okay, first of all, you're not. You might look better in some aspects, right? It's not like I have a strong point everywhere. But if someone's like, "Hey, how did you get those triceps?" So I can get those triceps. Like that's just like how all this shit connects in here. And I can tell you some things that I've done where I have seen improvement, right? Like doing a lot of overhead work, doing a lot of stuff beyond failure and with, momentum, etc. But that in no way guarantees that it's going to be the same outcome in terms of just structure. Because insertions and muscle bellies and just structure and how everything is put together, I mean, those play very, very large roles. Yeah. And one guy... He actually said, GVS, he says he has average genetics. And I've never said that. I've showed pictures of myself before lifting when I was a runner, and I looked pretty average. But that doesn't mean you have average genetics, right? Because it's how you respond, it's, your work, it impacts everything. Yeah. It really does impact everything. And so I definitely don't have average genetics. On the other hand, I think a lot of people would surprise themselves. I'm not saying, this is the GVS training plan. Like, this is how you look like me. Not what I'm saying at all. But I am saying that most people have a lot of areas that they could improve. I mean, training alone, there are so many facets where they could, just the technique, their tempo, their control, their effort, their proximity to failure, their programming, their periodization, their exercise. I mean, there's so many levels and layers to this. Then you get into the diet and the stress and the sleep management and everything. I mean, I think most people are probably 10, 15, 20 pounds or more away from where they could be. Yeah. And if they gain that much, they will probably look like they have better genetics, right? Like no one was talking about my genetics 5 years ago. Yeah. Because... you have to fulfill those genetics, and you don't know where that point is. Yeah. And I didn't know where this point would be. And if you had shown myself 5 years ago what I look like now, I'd be like, wow, that's me. Like, what? That doesn't even. And so I think most people can have that effect if they really nail things. And
Yeah.
most people are not. And so usually the people commenting, oh, steroids, fake natty, that kind of stuff, usually they're either the lifetime intermediates who are natural, but who are not really taking care of things, and they're
Yeah.
a little bit black-pilled, and they think that natural limit is really low, and their standards
Yeah.
are super low. Or it's the guys who were that guy, and then they hopped on something, and they're pissed off that an actual natural looks better than them
Yeah.
because they were promised these amazing results from the steroids, but they didn't take care of everything else.
Yeah.
Or maybe they didn't have the genetics, which is, a factor as well. And so those are the saltiest ones,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
The guys
Yeah.
who hopped on probably a bit too early, they didn't have their training or their diet or anything else in order, and then they're just pissed off about it. They don't want to accept the fact that the natural limit for someone else or even themselves is higher than they thought, because it's admitting to themselves that they went down a bad path. And that is a tough pill to swallow, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.